Uh, the Supreme Court overturned its own judgment of earlier, which had criminalized gay sex. Homosexuality was a crime. And today, when the Supreme Court ruled against 377, when they read down 377, a few very, very important observations were made. And it is important not just in view of homosexuality of a community, but to the country at large. For example, some of the observations that have been made by the Supreme Court, it is important also keeping in mind how the rest of our society functions. For example, the Supreme Court has said, and this really is the most important thing that we saw today, when they said majoritarian morality cannot dictate constitutional morality. Constitution is a dynamic document having the primary objective of establishing a dynamic and inclusive society. And that is really the one sentence I would underline. Just because you're in a majority, you cannot decide the morality of however a minuscule minority the rest of the communities are. Remember earlier when homosexuality was called a crime by the Supreme Court earlier by Justice Singhvi, they had said that they are a minuscule minority. Just because they are minuscule, just because they are a minority, their morality will not be decided by what the majority thinks. That really is key what was said today. And it was Chief Justice Deepak Mishra's judgment which said that constitutional rights cannot be dictated by majoritarian views and popular morality. Don't you think that this decision should have been given a few years before, says Anubhav. It was actually given by the Delhi High Court, Anubhav, but unfortunately overturned by the Supreme Court. Then a curative petition, again, the Supreme Court has ruled against 377. So that's the way law functions in our country. I'm just glad that what has happened has happened. What are your views to legalize homosexual marriages in future, says Kapil. I think that they should be legalized if they are consenting adults. Then homosexual marriages, same-sex marriages should be legalized. And for anyone who argues that the institution of marriage will be damaged and marriage is only between a man and a woman, these are social constructs. Social constructs evolve over time, and we are no one to judge that marriage, the institution of marriage will be endangered just because two people of the same gender get married. There are so many cases. You know what really endangers the institution of marriage? When two people are in love with each other, but they are made to marry separate people only because same-sex marriage is not allowed. Imagine, to not allow this one marriage, you are pushing two people into two unhappy marriages. So instead of two happy people, now you have four unhappy people. And we really think that is going to keep the institution of marriage safe? I really don't think so. There are going to be two broken marriages instead of one happy marriage. I think it should be legalized. Do you support mentioning third categories as others along with male, female on documents and forms, says Kapil. No, so transgenders in the Nalsa judgment, that was a big win. They got recognition as the third gender. So that was a very, very big win. And that in fact is considered one of the big steps that led towards this day. Kapil, I've already answered that question. Your views to legalize homosexual marriages in future, I think it should happen. Anubhav, do you think this can increase hatred against them? In saying that, Anubhav, you're assuming that there is already hatred against them. First of all, I do not see why you should hate anyone who is doing what they want with another consenting adult in the privacy of their bedroom or their house. How does it affect your or my life? And why do you hate them for it? So, if someone has to quote unquote hate people only because of their sexual choices, then well, I don't think a judgment affects them one way or the other. People who thought homosexuality is a crime will still think it is a crime, but the fact is our law needs to protect people irrespective of their sexual choices, and that is what has been ensured by the Supreme Court, and that's all that matters. Personal choices, your own personal opinion of other people's sexuality, frankly, I don't really think anyone cares about it. Least of all people who are engaging in a consensual relationship. These couples are still looked down upon by a majority of people. What should be done to change their mindset, says Neeraj. It will happen over time, Neeraj. First of all, once it stops being a crime, that in itself is a huge step forward. I think, a lot of activists that we've spoken to, they're completely right in saying that the change will have to be in society. How does it happen? How do we get conditioned? Over time, our conditioning happens through what we see around us, popular media, media representation, what we see in our books, what we hear around us. The law making them criminals only added to that. Obviously, if you hear that, homosexuality is a crime, automatically there's an aversion to people who have a certain sexual orientation. That has stopped. There will be other ways. We have a lot of constructs in our head, a lot of popular opinion, a lot of portrayals about. I don't know if it is relevant at all, but there is a strange misconception that people who are homosexual are more promiscuous or even more aggressive than others. Homosexuality is like heterosexuality. You are as promiscuous / aggressive as a homosexual as you are when you are a heterosexual. So if you that common misconception, which is portrayal either as a joke or a caricature, or people who behave in a certain way, or people who dress in a certain way, or people who are rapacious in that sense, who are going to attack you, a gay man who's going to rape another gay man, that's just really stupid. And hopefully portrayal in popular culture should change over time, and it will also change our conditioning, because we'll be seeing a different kind of the real portrayal, the portrayal of what people really are. All news anchors are celebrating as if it's Diwali today. I wonder how many of them are homosexual, says Kapil. You're celebrating because it is people getting their rights and dignity, Kapil. You do not become something just because you speak for them. I speak for animals. That doesn't make me a dog. So I think it's a very silly sort of an argument, sorry, Kapil, but you should be able to celebrate any good judgment, any step forward in terms of us evolving as a society. And to celebrate that means you're an ally. It doesn't mean that you are that. And even if someone is homosexual, more power to them. Maybe there are news anchors who are homosexual, more power to them. I don't see how that should affect you in any way, Kapil. Transgenders have been known for asking money in trains, markets. Shouldn't this be stopped and measures taken, says Anubhav. The two issues are completely separate, Anubhav. I don't think transgenders asking for money is again any different from heterosexual people begging for money on trains. There is a beggar menace. I think you might be talking about that, and that is a menace irrespective of whether it is done by transgenders or it done by heterosexuals or it done by homosexuals. It doesn't really matter. So I don't think the two are linked in any way. And there we have another debate altogether about why people do it. They are doing it because they're also disadvantaged. They are very poor. They are marginalized. Transgenders, actually, you're actually right. Transgenders in that sense are different from other people who are begging, because the other so-called normal beggars would have more avenues for employment. How many transgenders would even get other employment other than perhaps begging or maybe performing, dancing? There are only so many employment opportunities for them. So actually you should empathize more with them than anyone else begging at a red light or inside trains. Neeraj, we should accept such people with open arms and give them their due right and space in society. Do you think creating an awareness in schools about them is possible, says Neeraj. This is one of the most important things, Neeraj. Some things that we don't even understand, because growing up, like I said, we also have been conditioned in a certain way. Think about it. When we learn about reproductive organs, when we had that chapter in biology, we were just told about two genders. We were told about male, female, their reproductive organs. There wasn't even mention that there could be people who are intersex, who are homosexuals. We are taught always that a marriage is between a man and a woman, procreation happens between man and a woman. Is always very narrow concept of identity that we've grown up with. How about introducing the entire idea of LGBTQIA? Let's even start with LGBT in our textbooks. When we grow up learning about it, it normalizes it. It's not something, you know, ये क्या है, ये समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, ये कैसे लोग हैं. It's just like we learn about man, woman, child. We learn about, you know, your cochlea. You learn about what your eye looks like. You learn about homosexuality. You learn about what it is. And moral science should be done away with on a completely tangential note, because I think the things that we are taught in moral science, or at least just can we have an evolution of what moral science is, or just do away with it altogether. Half of the problems are because of moral science. Gautam. Yes, I am happy for the LGBT community. Constitution and rule of law should be supreme and there should be no doubt about it. But when we talk about overall society, it's unnatural and it will remain so. That's what you think, Gautam. But I think we evolve. If maybe if you spoke to your great grandfather or your great grandmother and asked them whether they think that one day women will be the sole earning members of the family, they would have thought it's completely unnatural. Wasn't so long ago when people actually said that it's unnatural for a woman who is above the age of 30 to have a child. Now there are so many women who are above the age of 30, 35, 39 who are having children. There are so many women who are not having children. There are so many women who are the sole bread earning members of their family. There are roles which are evolving. So natural, unnatural is also a social construct, and yes, it will take time, but things will evolve. When you speak about the majority, yes, the majority does think that it's unnatural, but the majority will change. Until that time, the majority will not decide what the minority should or shouldn't do. Okay, that's it. I am out of all the questions. Let's give it another 5 minutes in case anyone comes up with any thoughts in the next 5 minutes. But that being said, for everyone who's spoken about natural and unnatural, I want to quote some more bits of what the judgment today said. Sexual orientation is natural. Discrimination on basis of sexual orientation is violation of freedom of speech and expression. That is a part of the judgment. So when you said that for a majority it is unnatural, sexual orientation is also natural. So for you to decide that only heterosexuality is natural, it's entirely what you think. People are born wired a certain way, and you cannot discriminate against them based on what their natural orientation is. Homosexuality is not a mental disorder. Justice Rohinton Nariman said that homosexuality is not a mental disorder. The latest Mental Health Care Act, which was passed by Parliament, recognizes homosexuality as a normal condition, and that homosexuals have the right to live with dignity. In fact, the government should give wide publicity to the order to counter the stigma associated with homosexuality. All of this is a part of the judgment today. One more question, I think. Gautam has got a follow-up question where he says, unnatural means you cannot procreate babies. So what if a heterosexual couple cannot have babies? Are they unnatural because they are unable to have babies? It's a man and a woman, right? But they are just unable to have babies. Is that heterosexual couple unnatural then? What if a heterosexual couple doesn't want to have babies? Are they unnatural? Anubhav. Do you think that the pace of India to modernize by making decisions like abolition of triple talaq or 377 is a bit slow? It takes time. Yes, it takes time for a variety of reasons. First of all, politics, the law, all of it is a mirror of our society. We as a society have evolved, and it's only fair that we take that time. If suddenly it's, think of it this way, how much time did your grandparents take to start using WhatsApp? If they're taking so long to get used to WhatsApp, how long do you think they're going to take to get used to the idea of homosexuality when they've been brought up being told that heterosexuality is the only thing? So do you expect them to suddenly grow up and suddenly change their mind? No, it will take time. And we're just talking about individuals here. Imagine how long society will take. We take time. We did take time. This took almost 20 years. So yes, now when people are asking for same-sex marriages, that will perhaps take another 20 years, but the evolution and the change will come with time. So I think we're being a little harsh when we say that we are too slow. We are a huge country. We have too many different opinions. We have too many different cultures. Our culture is really old, rich, vibrant. It's misinterpreted a lot of times. A lot of things are attributed to our culture which don't really exist. We are told that homosexuality was never a part of our culture. Go back to our books and read it, and you'd be surprised at the number of times that homosexuality finds a mention there. The fact that people have talked about same-sex couples, people who existed only in order to pleasure others of the same sex. All of this is a document part of our history, but it's neither my remit nor do we have the time to discuss all of that over here. But trust me, just go back and read. You will read Devdutt Patnaik. You will find whether our culture and our history really finds mention of homosexuality or not. Okay, on that note, Anubhav, you were the last person to ask a question, and I would still say that it's a huge step ahead for us, because as a country we show that we are modern not by getting big cars and big houses, but when we really learn to accept diversity and when we learn to respect all kinds of people who are a part of our society just like us. That is what makes us truly modern and open and a thinking society. We can all be proud today and say that we've really joined the league of first world countries just by doing this. And I surely hope that you're all proud of it. Thanks very much for having joined us.